Hi, it's Rachel here from Off-Road.cc, and today we're going to take a first look at this Merida One-Forty 600, which is a £2,000 140mm trail bike. Now before I get started, I'm going to do the channel plug. So if you want to see more reviews and first looks of reasonably priced trail bikes like this, hit subscribe and then you'll get a notification when we pop a new video up. And if you like this video, then make sure you hit the like button at the end. And lastly, if you've got one of these and you can tell us how it rides and what you think of it, then leave some comments in the comments section below. Right, on with the first look. So, as I said, this is the Merida One-Forty 600. Now, it's £2,000 and it's the lowest spec and cheapest of the 140 range. This one's an aluminium frame, there's internal cable routing, and as I said, 140mm suspension at the rear paired with a 150 fork. As with all first looks that you do, we're going to have a look at the spec of this bike ahead of review. So I haven't yet ridden this bike yet, this is the first time we've got it out of the box. So I'm going to start at the front of this bike like I always do. Up front we've got a RockShox Sector RL fork. Now I'm going to go off on a bit of a tangent already. Other options for a bike of this price range and this travel is something like a RockShox Recon RL. Both that and the Sector have 32mm stanchions, but this will have a Sector on it because it comes on 150mm, while the Recon doesn't. So this bike also is a spec higher than that Recon, so it gets a motion control damper and a debonair air spring. You can also fit volume reducer tokens to this fork, which you can't in the Recon, and something like a Recon has steel upper tubes, whereas this one has aluminium upper tubes, which should make it a bit lighter. If you wanted to look in the other direction, so the other option for a bike of this price range is from the RockShox range is a Revelation. So rather than the 32mm stanchions, that has 35mm stanchions and then a bit stiffer chassis. So that's a different option, but it would make then the bike a little bit heavier. Dealing with the 140mm travel at the rear is a RockShox Deluxe Select Plus shock. This bike also gets a Trinion mount, so that means that where the shock is mounted on the rocker link here, it runs on bearings rather than bushings, so it should make that a little bit more sensitive, just a little bit easier to move in the first part of the travel. Moving on elsewhere on the bike, there is a SRAM NX drivetrain, so you've got a large range, it's a dub bottom bracket, and this medium bike comes with 32 tooth chainring with 175mm cranks. So this is a medium bike, the small bike get 170mm cranks, and then anything upwards 175. There is a Merida dropper post, and you've got Shimano MT500 brakes. So with SRAM providing the gearing, you've then got Shimano providing the braking. So these are the next step of brakes up from the MT401s. These are the MT500s, and they're the first brake in the range that get a single finger lever, and also the brand's servo wave technology. That servo wave technology is basically a leverage cam, so it increases power from the lever to the pistons. So for smaller input and smaller lever movement, you'll get more power at the calipers. There is also reach adjust on these brakes, and they're iSpec EV2, which means that they are integrated nicely with Merida's dropper post and that SRAM NX mech. So you've got a clean and uncluttered handlebar here. So onto that dropper post, that is a Merida 125mm dropper. It's obviously internally cable routed like the rest of the bike. And then lastly, to finish off on this spec, you've got Merida wheels. So these are 29mm internal width wheels, and they're shod with Maxxis tyres. There is a Maxxis Minion DHR2 up at the front and a Maxxis Recon at the back. Both are the EXO casing, and they are 27.5, because this is a 27.5 inch bike by 2.6 inch wide. Merida pretty much finished out the cockpit and the finishing kit on this bike. So there's Merida 7 80mm wide bars, a 50mm stem, and a Merida saddle. The geometry of this bike is firmly in the trail bike category, so it gets a 66-degree head angle, there's a 75-degree effective seat tube angle, and on this medium there's a rather short reach of 435mm. That will make the wheelbase come in at 1170, and it's got 435mm chainstays, so it's pretty much average trail bike category for a 140mm bike. Now, the other thing to mention here is Merida's suspension. Merida use what is called, or what they call, a float link suspension. So you'll have also seen this on some Treks, so they call it a full floater. It's basically where, as the shock compresses, as well as that upper rocker link moving, the place where the shock is inserted on the lower chainstays also moves too. So I will show you how that works. So as the shock compresses, the bottom link moves as well as the top link. Now, Merida say that's supposed to increase the plushness of the shock and basically increase the sensitivity at the start of the travel, so that'll be easier to move the shock off the first part of its travel and make it really supple. Now, I've used this on Treks before, and also a Merida 120 that I reviewed a couple of years ago, and it certainly does make for a really smooth ride. It'll be interesting to get to grips with it on a bit longer travel bikes such as this. The only thing I haven't mentioned is that this bike weighs in at 32 pounds bang on, so it's not heavy, and there's other bikes similar price that have also weighed in the same. So the Giant Chance 3 would be one, and also the Vitus Mythique that I've just reviewed. That's a 29er 140mm trail bike, was 32.4 pounds, so this is ballpark for this kind of bike. I'm really looking forward to getting on this bike and having a ride. It's going to be really good fun to get to grips with that suspension and see how it works with the geometry in an overall package. It's also going to be interesting to see if that RockShox sector's up to the job. First looks, I might think that this bike deserves a bit burlier fork, but let's have a ride of the bike and see how it goes before we make any judgments. So the full review will be on Off-Road, which is www.off.road.cc, and it will be up on YouTube as well following that review. In the meantime, we've got more Merida reviews online, so if you go on off.road.cc, in the search bar at the top, just stick in Merida and those will come up. The most recent one is the E140, so our editor John has reviewed the electric bike version of this bike. So E140 is the 140mm e-bike from Merida. So head over there and see how he got on with that one. I'll be back in a few weeks with a review of this bike. And if you're desperate for reviews of bikes in this price category, then scroll back a bit on YouTube and you'll find a Giant Chance 3, a Marin Rift Zone, and our latest bike, which is a Vitus Mythique 29 VRS. So have a look at those videos and we'll see how they compare with this one in a couple of weeks' time. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you again.